Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kenny, and I think I have a pretty good show for y'all today. But first, don't forget to rate, review, and follow us on whatever device you're on. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, obviously you can follow us there, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, whatever. Our podcast is there, and you guys can absolutely follow us there and listen. And we appreciate everything. We appreciate y'all so much for listening. So let's get into our what we're going to be doing today. So first, some stats and standing updates. Just get those right out of the way. Then some injury updates. And then in the third segment, we're going to do some Dodger talk, see what's going on with them, and see if they're going to be able to right the ship. I mean, they are in a funk right now. And then finally, the Oakland A's, right before I sat down to record this, they have announced that they're considering relocating. And so we're going to talk about the top 5 places that that they might end up, and then see what that is going on, or what else is going on with them to begin with. So let's just start out in the NL West. Colorado right now is in last place. They're 12-22, 9 games back out of first place. They are 3-7 in their last 10, and they've lost their last 3 straight games. Also, they're minus 24 right now in run differential, and they're giving up a lot of runs. They've given up 183 runs as opposed to the 159 runs that they've scored so far. Right? They've given up almost as many runs. They're number 2 in runs given up so far this year, with the Angels being the number 1 team that has given up the most amount of runs with 188. But we'll get to the Angels here in a little bit. So, Arizona is in 4th place. They are 16-19. They are 5-5, or 5.5 games back out of their last, or out of first place. Excuse me. They're 3.5 games back out of the wild card. 3-7 out of their last 10, but they have won their most recent game. They're also minus 12 in the run differential category. Now, the Dodgers are in 3rd place right now. Like I said, they're in a bit of a funk. It's not going great right now if you're a Los Angeles Dodger fan. I was almost ready to crown them the best team that I had ever seen in baseball, and then over the last few games after their hot start, they were on pace at the beginning of the year to win 148 games. And now they're 18-17, 3.5 games out of first place, 1 game back out of the wild card spot, and they're 2-8 out of their last 10. They did recently break that huge losing streak that they were on, but they did lose their most recent game. They're still positive in the run differential category, though, and that is huge. That is huge. That means they're still scoring runs. It's just they're falling a little bit short, and we're gonna look into that in a little bit. But we don't want to get too tied down here. In 2nd place in the NL West is the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now the San Diego Padres. Now the Padres are 19-16. They're 2.5 games back out of first place. They do have a wild card spot right now, and they're 6-4 out of their last 10. They've won their most recent game, and they're plus 19 in run differential. They're not scoring as much as I would really like them to score, and they did just lose a huge piece with Tatis. We're going to talk about more injury updates and stuff like that, but Tatis right now headed to the IL because he tested positive for COVID, so he's going to be out for at least by a minimum a week, more likely 2 weeks. It could just be a false positive, and he might be back out a lot sooner than we expect, but Tatis is going to be out for at least the next few series at the very least. And San Francisco right now, they are 22-14. They're so surprising. Like, nobody was expecting this. They have, like, Buster Posey. Like, I was expecting them to trade Brandon Belt at the beginning of the season, or see how he does at the beginning of the season. I was expecting the Giants to be about 500, them to see how if they can get rid of Brandon Belt, move Buster Posey over to first base, try and kind of do like a Joe Mauer situation. But it doesn't look like they're going to be doing that right now. They might be buyers at the trade deadline and try and improve on what has been an amazing first month and a half almost. They're 22-14, 6-4 out of the last 10. They're +2 in the run differential and +31 in run differential. Now, they're not scoring a lot of runs. They have scored more than the Padres. But they're not giving up a lot of runs. Their pitching staff has been fantastic this year, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, maybe in the Dodgers segment a little bit, with guys like Anthony DeSclafani just absolutely having an amazing season so far this year. And I mean, we're gonna have a fun episode today. Going out to the NL Central. Oh my gosh, I forgot. I even made a note, but I forgot to say it. So, Albert Pujols update. Albert Pujols update alert. So Pujols has yet to sign with a team. We talked about it in my last episode where he might go and where I would like to see him go. Obviously, I would love to see him sign and go back to the Cardinals. But right now, the Dominican Republic wants Pujols to potentially play for them for their qualifying tournament, for their Olympic qualifying tournament, and that would be. I don't know if Pujols is done in the bigs yet, but I think that this would be an amazing place for him to finish his career. It would be quite awesome if that were the way he ended his baseball playing career, is getting the Dominican Republic into the Olympics. In the NL Central, the Cardinals are in first place with a record of 21-14. They are 8-2 out of their last 10, a 3-game winning streak, +23 in run differential. Milwaukee is in second place right now. They're 19-16, 2 games back, out of first place. They're 4-6 out of their last 10, but they have won their last 2 games. They're -6 right now in run differential, so that's kind of growing in the direction that we don't want to see it grow in, but they are doing a great job still being competitive and fighting for that, and I think Milwaukee has a great chance to make the playoffs right now. They do have a wild card spot, and that is a very good thing for Milwaukee to have right now. In third place tied for third place, I should say, are the Cubs and the Reds. The Cubs are 17-17. The Reds are 16-16. They are both 3.5 games back out of first place and a game and a half out of the wild card spot. The Cubbies are 7-3 out of their last 10, but they did lose their most recent game. And the Reds are 6-4 out of their last 10, and they had an interesting win yesterday against the Pirates. And I don't know if anybody saw it. I'm recording this on Tuesday, May 11th, so on the 10th, there was a little standoff between a player on the Reds and a player on the Pirates, and they were just standing there with before the game. They do the national anthem, and the players stand with their hats off, holding their hats on their heart and their hand behind their back. And 2 players were doing that, and they did it for. I want to say they did it for probably 10 minutes, them both just standing there, and it was really funny to watch. I encourage y'all to go check it out on Twitter or something like that. But speaking of the Pirates, they are 14-20 and 6.5 games back out of first place, 4.5 games back out of the wild card. They're 2-10 out of their last 10 games, or 2-8, out of their last 10 games. They did lose most recently to the Reds, and they are -43 in run differential. Pirates fans, I'm sorry, it's just not going to be y'all's year. Going out to the NL East, Washington is currently in last place with a record of 13-17. They're 3.5 games back, as are the Marlins, who are 15-19. Both teams 3.5 games back out of first place and the wild card spot. Washington is 5-5 out of their last 10, but they have been on a losing skid right now, with losing their last 2. Miami also on a losing skid. They've lost 3 straight and are 4-6 out of their last 10, but they are still the only team in the East that has a positive run differential. They have only given up 121 runs, and they've scored 138. That's plus 17, and that's pretty good. I really expect Miami to turn it around pretty rapidly, honestly, because Miami has a good team this year. The Marlins are definitely a team that you can't count out. Now, going up to third place in the NL East is Atlanta. Atlanta is 17-17, a game and a half back out of first and the wild card. They're 5-5 out of their last 10 and have won their last 2 games. They are minus 12 right now in run differential, but I think that they'll probably flip that around pretty soon. Philadelphia right now is in second place. They are 18-17. They are a game back out of first and the wild card spot. They're 6-4 out of their last 10, and they're on a 2-game losing streak right now. The Mets, they are 16-13. They are in sole possession of first place right now. They're 7-3 out of their last 10 and are on a 5-game winning streak, the biggest winning streak right now in the National League. In fact, that actually is the biggest winning streak in all of baseball right now. So the Mets are doing something that is really good right now, and I think that's really good for the Mets. Going out to the AL West, the Oakland Athletics are in first place. We're going to talk more about the Athletics later. They're 21-15. They're 5-5 out of their last 10. They did lose their most recent game, and they're still getting outscored. Their run differential is minus 10 right now, but they should definitely be able to turn it around pretty soon. Houston right now is 18-17. So is Seattle. They're both tied for second place. They're both 2.5 games back out of first and a half game back out of the wild card right now. Both of those teams are 5-5. Houston lost their most recent game, and Seattle has lost their 2 most recent games. Houston, the only team in the AL West that has a positive run differential right now with a plus 32. Seattle has a minus 15. The Rangers right now are 18-20, and they are tied for I guess they're tied for fourth place with the Angels. So the Angels and Rangers are technically tied for fourth. The Rangers 18-20, the Angels 16-18. Both teams are 4 games back out of first place and 2 games back out of the wild card. The Rangers are 6-4 out of their last 10, but they have lost 2 straight, whereas the Angels are 4-6 out of their last 10, but they've won their last 2 straight. The Angels, however, are getting outscored right now by 26 runs. Like, they are minus 26 in the run differential category, and that's not a recipe for success, and that's why they're in the cellar right now in the AL West. Going out to the Central, Detroit, 10-24, one of the worst teams in baseball this year. Everybody kind of expected Detroit to be that. They started off kind of hot against the Cleveland Indians, but kind of cooled off immediately after that first game. They're 10-24, like I said, 10 games back out of first place, 8 games out of the wild card, 2-8 in their last 10. They did win their most recent game, and they're minus 68 in run differential. Detroit really needs some bats. Miguel Cabrera is not who he once was, and it's hard to watch Detroit right now at the plate. Minnesota. So I would say Minnesota being 12-20 at this point is a bigger surprise, however, than San Francisco being 22-14 and in first place. I expected Minnesota to at least be competitive right now in the AL Central. Honestly, like I said, and I'm going to say this every time we talk about Minnesota, I expected them to win this division. I did not expect it to be like this. Cleveland is, I would have expected Cleveland to be more like this than Minnesota, even though, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of surprising to me. It's just kind of surprising to me, guys. They're 12-20, 7 games out of first and 5 games out of the wild card. They are 5-5 out of their last 10, and they did lose their most recent game. They are minus 2 in run differential right now, and their offense just isn't scoring runs, and that's their pitching staff is doing pretty good. It's just their offense right now it's kind of letting them down. Kansas City, I would say one of the bigger surprises, aside if it wasn't for the Dodgers being as bad as they've been, I feel like the Royals would be getting hit a lot harder. The Royals were in first place with a great record and have lost so many baseball games. They've lost 8 straight. And oh my gosh, like they were one of the best teams in baseball for like the first couple weeks of the year, and now they're 16-17. They're in third place. They're 3.5 games out of first, 1.5 out of the wild card. They're 1-9 out of their last 10 games, and they're minus 31 in runs scored. They're just not playing good baseball right now. Now the Cleveland Indians, they are 18-14 right now. They're a game back out of first place, but they are +1 in the wild card. They're 7-3 out of their last 10, and they have won their most recent game. They're doing really good. It's just Cleveland sometimes just forgets to hit the baseball, and then they get no hit. It's happened a couple times this season. I believe they're the only team to be no hit multiple times already this year. Granted, there have been a lot of those already, but still. The White Sox right now, they are 19-13. They are 7-3 out of their last 10. They are on a 3-game winning streak. They're +53 in run differential. And oh my gosh, like Chicago's a good team. Chicago's a really good team. Cleveland is also a really good team. They're a lot better than I was expecting them to be this year. They're a lot more competitive, and I think that Cleveland might end up getting something out of this season. And I think that's going to be really cool for Tribe fans to see. The White Sox are also doing really good too. I think that the White Sox would be a very good representation of the AL Central this year. Going out to the AL East real quick, Boston in first place, 22-14, 6-4 out of their last 10. Lost their most recent game. The Yankees are finally in second place again. They're tied with Tampa Bay. They are 18-16. Tampa Bay is 19-17. Both teams 3 games back out of first place, and they're tied for a wild card spot right now. The Yankees are 7-3 out of their last 10, and the Rays are 6-4 out of their last 10. Both teams have won their most recent game. Toronto 17-16, 3.5 games back out of first place, half game back out of the wild card. They're 6-4 out of their last 10. They have lost their most recent game. Baltimore is 16-19 right now, and they are 5.5 games back out of first place, and they are 2.5 games back out of the wild card. So we're gonna real quick talk a little bit about some stats updates. Our league leader right now in average is going to be Mike Trout, it's Yerman Mercedes right now. Yerman Mercedes, 373 so far this year. Mike Trout finally out of the 400 club. He is in second place, tied with Jesse Winkler at hitting 365 right now. Xander Bogaerts and Jared Walsh round out the top 5 at 348 and 347 respectively. At home run leader, Ronald Acuna Jr., J.D. Martinez, and Shohei Ohtani still all tied with 10. A bunch of guys tied with 9 and a bunch of guys tied with 8. Our league leader so far in RBIs is J.D. Martinez. He has 31 RBIs. Rafael Devers, Trey Mancini, Jared Walsh, and then all have 29. And then Randall Grinick of Toronto has 28. Our league leader in strikeouts is Joey Gallo, still 55 strikeouts so far this year. Matt Chapman and Eugenio Suarez are tied for second with 49. Rhys Hopkins with 47 and Randy Arozarena with 45 round out the rest of it. In pitching, our league leader in ERA, still Jacob deGrom. He went to the IR just not too long ago, so he'll be out and he'll be able to hold on to that league-leading ERA for a while. He is a .68, only player in baseball right now with a sub-1 ERA. Danny Duffy in second with a 126. John Means with a 131. Garrett Cole with a 161. And Brandon Woodruff with a 173 round out the top 5. Our league leader in strikeouts, Shane Bieber, out of his 8 starts, has 79 strikeouts. Tyler Glasnow, out of his 8 starts, has 75 strikeouts. Tyler Glasnow giving Bieber a run for his money, it looks like. Trevor Bauer is in third right now with 67. And Garrett Cole is going to pass him for sure. The next start he has, he's only had 7. Bauer has had 8. Garrett Cole with 66. Jacob deGrom still with only 6 outings so far, and he still has 65. He's still in the top 5 right now, which is really impressive. Our league leader in saves is Mark Melancon still with 11. Ian Kennedy, Jake McGee, Alex Reyes are all tied for second with 10. And then Matt Barnes and Cesar Valdez are tied for 8. Aroldis Chapman, somebody who we need to be paying attention to. I haven't talked a lot about him on the podcast, but he's having probably the best season a relief player can have. So we're going to take a short break here in just a minute, and then after that, we're going to be talking about injury updates. Like I said, Tatis has been put on the positive COVID list, or on the IR because he tested positive with COVID. So we're going to be right back in just a second with all that.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, and welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Thanks for taking that short break with us. Let's get into some injury updates. I know I'm sounding a little bit too chipper about these things, but about this one in particular. But it's not that I'm happy that anybody's hurt, because obviously I never want to see anybody hurt, but I'm just kind of happy today, so I'm going to have a little bit more of an upbeat attitude going into this not sort of sad, or more sad segment than normal. So Javier Baez, Jake Arrieta, and Jake Marisnick for the Cubs have all been placed on the IR. Well, not on the IR, but are out, at least for now. Javier Baez was scratched from Tuesday's game against the Indians due to some lower back tightness. Jake Arrieta has a right thumb aberration and was scheduled to throw a bullpen session in Cleveland on Tuesday, while Marisnick was placed on the 10-day IL with a right hamstring injury. Steven Strasburg, a little injury update for him. He threw 62 pitches over 4 innings in a simulated game on Tuesday. He is on the IL with some right shoulder inflammation. Carlos Martinez for the Cardinals. The Martinez announced prior to their Tuesday game that they have placed Martinez on the 10-day injured list, retroactive to Sunday with an ankle injury. And Martinez said he hurt his ankle celebrating Jack Flaherty's home run on Friday. DeGrom, JD Martinez, and Brandon Nimmo for the Mets. So according to the Luis Rojas, DeGrom's MRI revealed nothing, not even any inflammation, and the Mets have placed Jacob DeGrom on the injured list to ensure his right side tightness won't mess with his mechanics. They're just doing this as a super serious safety precaution for him, because obviously DeGrom's probably the best pitcher and most dominant pitcher that we've seen in baseball since, I would probably say Pedro Martinez as a starter, or even if you remember a few years ago with Andrew Miller coming out of the bullpen for Cleveland during their 2016 run to the World Series. I would say that we probably haven't seen anybody as that dominant since probably since Pedro Martinez. So really they're just trying to be super careful with him. Obviously he is, in my opinion, he's the best pitcher in baseball. And as everybody knows, I'm a Cleveland baseball fan, and we've had some serious they've had some serious guys come out of there, like Corey Kluber, Trevor Bauer, Mike Clevenger, Shane Bieber. Right now, Cleveland has had some seriously good guys. You go back a little bit even further, you have guys like Cliff Lee and CC Sabathia, and you have guys like Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander. Maybe Justin Verlander. I might consider Justin Verlander, or a very early, maybe I would say a very early Clayton Kershaw. But right now, I think DeGrom is the best pitcher in baseball. I think he might be the best since Pedro, and because of that, I think that. Or for that reason alone, I just think he's so good, and I think that he just doesn't get enough run support. I think when he's on the mound, he just doesn't get any run support, and that's why his record is the way that he is. But so they're just being super cautious and just shutting him down for just a few weeks, just to just to let him relax, kind of a thing. Also, JD Davis with a left hand sprain won't be activated from the IL until when this podcast releases, which is Wednesday. At least that's the schedule. That's the first day he is eligible to return. Brandon Nimmo has a bone bruise in his left hand. He could be back this Friday, and he could be back this Friday. And for the Rockies, CJ Cron. The Rockies placed Cron on the 10-day injured list on Monday with a lower back strain, ending this past weekend with a waiting period in which he was the first baseman, was scratched this past Friday. His placement on the injured list is retroactive to May 7th. So we're going to talk a little bit more about some other guys that are also hurt here in just a sec. Going over to Cleveland, Roberto Perez is getting finger surgery, and he's going to be out for a few months. So Terry Francona hopped on a Zoom to address Roberto Perez's the fact that he underwent repairs to his fractured right finger on this past Friday, and hasn't received a full update yet from the doctor. Or at least he hadn't yet. He's going to miss a lot of time, though. It's definitely months, Francona said. When asked about Perez's timeline, quote, anything that we pass along, it's going to be a rough estimate, just again because we've been through this before and it's not perfect. Perez flew to Dayton, Ohio last Thursday to meet with Dr. Graham, but nothing at the time the team did not specify that surgery was needed. Quote, I think that we knew going in that we were just trying to be fair and respectful to Berto. I think that we felt like the surgery was probably more probable than not. Perez suffered the injury on April 13th again in Chicago when he crossed up a pitcher when he got crossed up on a pitch from reliever James Karinch. And as Perez got out of his squat to catch the ball, he thought it would be a high fastball. The pitch broke, and Perez reacted. The ball crippled his right finger, creating a fracture, and he attempted to play through it, but the pain obviously was too much to bear, and the club placed him on the 10-day injured list this past Wednesday. Perez posted a picture of himself in the hospital bed on his Instagram story on Friday afternoon and saying his procedure was finished and that he would be back soon. But in the meantime, Francona is working through how he'll split time with the backups Austin Hedges and Rene Rivera behind the dish. I would say we'll see how it goes, Francona said. I think it's easy to say, well, Rene had 3 hits yesterday. Why don't you play him today? But that was his first game, so he's actually caught 9 innings. So we don't know. We don't want to overdo him either. So we'll just try and use good judgment. My guess is you'll see Hedges catch more, maybe not as much as Roberto was. So that's an injury on the star catcher for the Cleveland Indians. The Tigers are optimistic that Boyd is not going to miss a lot of time with his knee tendonitis for the Tigers. Byron Buxton with his hip strain, his timetable is still to be determined. It's going to be sad. It's going to be hard to see him miss some more time as well, just because Buxton was off to such a great start this year. Going out to the Athletics in the AL West, Mike Fiers is went to the IL, and then a few updates, and then another update with Smith's back injury. So prior to this past Saturday's game, the A's placed Mike Fiers on the 10-day injured list, retroactive to May 7th, with a sprained elbow, and the right-hander felt some discomfort in the elbow after his previous start against the Blue Jays, and consulted with the A's training staff afterwards. An MRI on Friday revealed that that Fiers had fluid and inflammation built up around his elbow from an old ligament injury he sustained earlier in his career. And so the A's athletic trainer, Nick Peresta, said, we're going to shut him down for a few weeks before we reevaluate that elbow and see how he's doing. We felt it was best to give him some time off. Returning from a lumbar strain that landed him on the IL to begin the season, Fiers was 0-2 with a 7.71 ERA in the 2 starts that he was given before going to the IL. Birch Smith, the right-handed pitcher, is groin strain was reinstated from the 10-day IL and assumed Fire's spot on the active roster. Smith appeared in a game for the AAA Las Vegas on Thursday, allowing a run, 2 hits with two strikeouts over 1 1/3 innings. With the day off on Monday, or this past Monday, the A's could get through to their next turn in the rotation, starting on the rotation with regular rest, though Bob Melvin, the manager of the A's, said calling up a starter from the minor leagues is also on the table. One more thing that we're going to talk about right here is we're going to talk about the Reds shuffling up their lineup. Votto obviously out for a few weeks still with a fractured thumb, but Akiyama was activated, so the formal roster move was made on Friday. As expected, the first baseman Joey Votto placed on the 10-day injured list with a fractured left thumb, and outfielder Shogo Akiyama was activated from the injured list. More to happen with the team is that they look beyond Votto's absence to create just a shift with a lot of positions. David Bell and the club maneuvered in the lineup. So for Friday's last game against Cleveland, Moustakas was moved from first to third base. Quote, going over and playing new positions again, it's always good. I'm excited. I like first base. It'll be fun to get back over there for sure, said Moustakas, who played 10 games at first base last season with 8 starts. I just want to win, so whatever I can do to help us win ball games is what I'm going to do. Votto is expected to miss 3 to 4 weeks, but Bell didn't plan on having Moustakas manning first base. Alex Blandino and Kyle Farmer will get their chances as soon as both of the team's catchers, Tucker Barnhart and Tyler Stevenson, who played an inning at first base this past Tuesday's game against the White Sox. Stevenson did work extra at first base before some of their batting practices the last few days. With less likely but possible first baseman candidates are Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez right now. Bell said, quote, I think we'll take it one day at a time. We have players who are versatile, and we have players, more importantly, that are willing to really do whatever it takes to open up possibilities and put our best team on the field each night. Bell also moved Nick Senzel from center field to second base, Suarez back to third base, where he played from 2016 to 2020, and Kyle Farmer to shortstop on Friday. So that's kind of all the injury updates that I have for y'all. So I also have a few players that are just kind of playing under the radar and just, doing a really good job this season. So George Springer has really barely played for the Blue Jays. And is off to and Blake Snell is kind of off to a really slow start for the Padres. Also, the imaginary raccoon possum at Citi Field for Francisco Lindor is basically as many home runs as he's hit this season. But here are 10 players whose change of team didn't really garnish a lot of attention, but have really exceeded some expectations so far. So all 3 of those guys, obviously the biggest moves in the offseason, but none of them have really done anything just yet. But Cole Irvin for the A's, he's a left-handed pitcher. He had a 6.75 ERA and didn't miss many bats in the 45 2/3 innings that he had for the Phillies last season, or the last 2 seasons. But when the A's acquired him in a cash transaction, he seemed like a depth piece at the best. Instead, thanks to Mike Fiers' absence since the start of this season, he's been in the rotation and he's been pretty good. In the 7 starts, he's 27 years old. He has a 3.29 ERA, a 107 WHIP, and a 6.2 strikeout to walk ratio. Is in the top 10 for qualified pitchers in the bigs right now. Finds like this are really how the A's just keep on keeping on, like how they keep reinventing themselves with just random guys that everybody else has kind of given up on. And I mean, I think everybody, I would presume that a lot of the people listening to this podcast have seen the movie Moneyball, and one of my top 10 baseball movies of all time, a fantastic movie. And oh my gosh, it is such a fantastic movie, but he is doing a great job this year. Nate Lowe, the first baseman for the Rangers, is having a great year so far. It was a 6-player trade between the Rays and the Rangers that brought Lowe to the Rangers. It was far from a giant seismic swap of the offseason. He was the only player involved with Major League service time, while his .251 average, .322 on-base percentage, and .447 slugging line in the 71 games with the Rays from 2019 to 2020 was solid. He wasn't able to crack the regular lineup. But with the Rangers, he's had the opportunity and seized it. He's hit .287 with a .374 on base percentage, and he's slugging .478 right now in the 36 games that he's played. He's 25, and he's emerged as a potential fixture in the Rangers lineup that's trying to build a team to win. And he's doing a great job at it. Anthony Descalafani for the Giants. If you're wondering really how the Giants are in first place in the NL West and not the Dodgers or the Padres, this is one of the answers. Descalafani had a disappointing 2020 with the Reds. He had a 7.22 ERA in the 33 2/3 innings he pitched, but so far this year he has a 2.40 ERA, a .94 whip, and a 3.6 strikeout to walk ratio in the 7 starts that he's had, and the 41 1/3 innings that he's pitched for San Francisco. He's held right-handed hitters to a .428 OPS. That is on base percentage plus slugging. That is really, really good. Scalafani has played for the Reds, the Dodgers, and he's having a fantastic year this year. So kudos to Descalafani. The Reds, Tyler Naquin. So Naquin finished third in the Rookie of the Year voting in 2016, and I know for a fact that I fell in love with Tyler Naquin watching that. It was that 2016 year. It felt magical to be a person from the state of Ohio and watching the Cleveland professional organizations just absolutely be awesome. Obviously, the Cleveland Cavaliers came back 3-1 that year and beat the Golden State Warriors, and Tyler Naquin was a giant part of the Cleveland Indians' success in 2016, and it was magical. I remember, like, I can picture in my head almost immediately when I think of Tyler Naquin, and I think of his amazing inside the park home run, and he came up after diving into home plate, and he threw up his hand as like a rock on symbol, and I just thought it was just the best Cleveland thing that you could have. So he's really dealt with a lot of injuries over the last 4 seasons. The Reds picked him up off of a scrap heat, and ironically, it was Naquin who helped him manage early injuries in absence of others. He's in the 28 games that he's played, he's hitting .278, .365, a .578 slugging percentage, and I mean, he already has 8 home runs already, and more than half as many as he had in 2016. And he's just having such a great year, and I can't be more happy for him that he's finally getting back on the field, and he's finally getting something done, and I can't be more happy for him. Up next, the next guy, and probably the last guy that I want to talk about, is Jose Urena. So Urena was considered a very important building block for the Marlins the past few years, but he got hit hard in 2019 and missed most of 2020 while in COVID protocol. And he came to Detroit looking to put himself back together under under his former pitching coach Juan Nieves. It's worked out really well so far for him like this year. And he's pitching .268 right now. He over 37 innings in his past 6 starts. And this is just another example of advanced metrics not aligning with the surface level stats. Urena's expected ERA is .470, but so far he's been a bright spot for a terrible Detroit Tigers team. He's doing a great job, and I'm really happy for him too, because honestly, the one thing I can think of when I think of Jose Urena is when he is So if anybody is a fan of the Dan Le Batard show, a few years ago they went to opening day, and Ian Happ was the leadoff hitter. It was his rookie year, his first at-bat in the big leagues, if I remember correctly. And on the very first pitch of the game, Ian Happ, and of the season, Urania threw a fastball in on the hands of Ian Happ, and Ian Happ took it out of the ballpark, and it was kind of amazing. So that's going to do it in this segment, but after this, we're going to do some Dodger talk, maybe a little bit of A's talk, and figure out what's going on with the Dodgers.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And thank you everybody for waiting patiently for this third segment right here. So this is partially from a article by ESPN staff writer Alden Gonzalez, who is one of the beat writers for ESPN. So thank you to him for this article. Just kind of doing that. So basically, I mean, the Dodgers were just built for just being unprecedented. Like they would have been, they were on pace to be so good this year. And unfortunately, I mean, their initial record was 13-2, and then it was followed by 15 losses out of 20 games, in the craziest reversal that anybody could have ever seen. And so the Dodgers right now are in third place of the NL West, and I mean it's not good right now. Like, they're 18-17 right now. They're not great. They're not doing good at all. And Trevor Bauer said that he said, quote, "I'm pissed personally. I freaking hate losing. I want to win. That's why I came here, and we're not playing up to our capability right now." So Bauer left a curveball slightly up to Angels first baseman Jared Walsh with the bases loaded and 2 outs in the third, and a pitch that resulted in a 2-run homer. A 2-run double. Trevor Bauer then retired the next 10 in a row to keep the game close, but the Dodgers only scored a run the entire night. They put a leadoff runner on in the 5th, 6th, and 7th and didn't get a run in. And while still down by a run in the ninth, they had 2 runners on with Justin Turner, their best hitter of the season right now, on, and it didn't come out right. The Dodgers had lost 5 consecutive up to by May 9th, and are 1-1 since May 9th. They've gone 6-16 out of their last 22 games. It's the first time that they've done that since the early portion of the 2018 regular season, when they suffered through what several players described as a World Series hangover. And Dodgers utility man Chris Taylor said, quote, "The team is too talented for it not to turn around," a notion demonstrated by the plus 32 run differential that they have right now. It's first in the National League. but the root of their struggle is not their identity. The Dodgers haven't been hitting to their capabilities, and they haven't been hitting poorly. The starting pitching has fallen off a tad, and it's partially because they've just been hurt. Their bullpen is shorthanded, but it's not necessarily imploded. The Dodgers have been hurt mostly by their inability to match hitting with their pitching the same day. So if they have a pitcher that's giving up or that only gives up 2 runs in a start like Bauer did, but they only score 1 run, it's basically what Jacob deGrom has been going through his entire career with the Mets. It's the fact that they have they're just not scoring enough runs right now, but they're not losing by a lot either. And when they do win by a decent amount, which is why their run differential is still so high. I mean, the Dodgers dropped both ends of a doubleheader from Wrigley after like last week when Kershaw struggled through the first inning of Game 1 and the bullpen blew a lead late in Game 2. The following day, they took leads into the 10th and the 11th, and they still ended up losing. When they got back to Southern California, they enjoyed a day off and then went to face an Angels team that had lost 4 straight. And it felt like the Dodgers might finally get out of that. But this past Friday, their most important pitchers, Julio Urias and Joe Kelly, each gave up 4 runs. Each gave up a 4-run inning. That's one of their best starters. And their best closer, they each gave up 4 runs. This past Saturday, the Dodgers took a 13-0 lead and almost gave it all up. And then on Sunday, they went 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. You can't win like that. You can't win. When you're up by 13, it should be just clear coasting. But one of the things that you have to be careful with, especially if you get out to a 13-0 lead, say in like the 4th or the 5th inning, is you have to remember that you're still playing a game and the game isn't over yet. And that the other team is obviously freaking upset and downright peed off that they're even down by this much in the first place. So they're going to try and fight back because there's still half of the baseball game to play. And Trevor Bauer said, quote, "You can say it's early and you can say there's no need to panic and you can say all these things, and they're all true. But at the end of the day, we're not just going to roll the bats and balls out there and win games. We're not going to just sleepwalk our way into winning another division title and going to the World Series again. That's not how it works." And Trevor Bauer was a huge key part of the World Series run that the Cleveland Indians had in 2016. I know we talked about Tyler Naquin earlier, but Trevor Bauer was a huge part of that as well. And if anybody knows how to get to there, it's this club with guys like Trevor Bauer and Clayton Kershaw and Joe Kelly and Chris Taylor and Justin Turner. These guys know how to get there. And so if you're a Dodger fan, you can't be worried. I mean, obviously you can be frustrated and you can be upset that they're not playing well, but this team knows what it takes to get there. And it's still early. It's still May. We still have June, the rest of May, June, July, August, and September. That's almost 5 more months of baseball that still needs to be played. I mean, granted, we'll be about halfway through the season toward late June, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while for this team to get back in it. And granted, when they first started, they were hot stuff. They were by far the best team in baseball. Like that's not a question. Like that is not a question at all. They were the best team in baseball, and right now they're just in a slump. It's just a slump. And that's what it is. And as hard as that is to really focus on, they're just in a slump right now. Their best hitter right now is Justin Turner, and then he's hitting over 300. Chris Taylor is hitting 276. Corey Seager's hitting 273. Mookie Betts 261. They need these guys to start getting more RBIs. Mookie Betts right now only has 11 RBIs this year. He only has 4 home runs. Corey Seager has as many home runs and also has more at-bats. And granted, that is partially because of where they fall in the lineup and stuff like that. But they're just not getting it done right now. And, like, as hard as that is to say, they're just not doing what they need to do right now. AJ Pollock's only hitting 261 right now. Max Muncy's only hitting 219. They need these guys to start stepping up and hitting the baseball. That's really what it is right now. They're just not hitting great right now. Like in April, Justin Turner hit 330, and right now he's not hitting that well right now in May. Chris Taylor and Corey Seager were hitting 250 and 255. They're not doing what they need to be doing. Clayton Kershaw is still doing a great job this year. He's out of the 44 and 2/3 innings that he's pitched, he has 46 strikeouts. He's pitched in 8 games. He has a 5-3 record. Trevor Bauer, who's pitched in 8 games, has a complete game, but is only 3-2 in his decisions. Walker Buehler is only 1-0 in the 6 games that he's started. Corey Knebel, only 1-0 in the 8 games that he's started. 8 games that he has played in. He's 2-3 in his save opportunities. Dustin May, he was 1-1 in the 5 starts that he had before he got Tommy John. David Price, he was doing very well, and they need guys like that to come back. And right now, the Dodgers are just in a tough spot because you have guys like you lost guys like Dustin May, who is a huge thing. And I was thinking when Dustin May got out, I was like, all right, next man up mentality. But then I forgot that there are other guys that would have been the next man up are kind of hurt. And unfortunately, I think once those guys come back, that the Dodgers will, fortunately for the Dodgers, I think once those guys come back, that they'll be able to settle down and things like that. But it's hard right now to try and find that. It's really hard. It is hard for the Dodgers to be doing that. And I mean, just like their injury updates alone, I mean they've been hurt. They've been hurt quite a bit. They did get Joe Kelly back, but they had to send Alexander to the IL. They had Jose Rios. They had to put him on the IL. Tommy Pham. They're not Tommy Pham. Excuse me. Tommy Pham plays for the Padres, but Dustin May having to get Tommy John. It's awful for him. It's really, really bad for him. And I mean, they did get Gavin Lux back, but David Price went to the IL. David Price still isn't back. I mean, it's unfortunate that they're losing so many guys right now. Dodgers are very hopeful that AJ Pollock is going to be able to avoid the injured list, but he does have a grade 1 left hamstring strain, and strains are very hard to get over. It's hard for you to feel comfortable mentally, even though physically you might not feel it. You're scared again that you're going to strain it even worse, or worse, you're just going to straight tear your ACL or his hamstring in this case. I'm sorry. When you strain it, it's hard to get over that mental. It's hard to get over that mental barrier. You physically might be completely back to normal, and you might be able to go out and do everything that you were doing. But because you got hurt, it's scary to get back out there. I know when I was playing, I tweaked my back. I was catching at the time, and I went to block a ball and I tweaked my back, and I had to miss a few games because of that. And even though there was no pain, it felt like even when I was moving that I was still a little tight, even though I wasn't. Like it still felt like there was something there that was missing. And once I finally got over that mental hurdle, I started playing back to where I was. And it's the same thing for guys like this. It's the same thing that you have to have to trust in your body, in your preparation, but every once in a while, you push your body a little bit too hard and your body just starts to crumble. And unfortunately right now for AJ Pollock, he's still out. He's still out and he's not back yet. The Dodgers have so many guys right now on their injury report. It's crazy to me that they're it's not. I'll say this. It's not crazy that they are where they are. It's not because of things like these injuries. And they also went through a tough stretch of games where they were playing teams like the Padres and the Giants. And the Angels, while the Angels are in last place in the AL West, the Angels aren't a team that are going to roll over. While the Angels aren't performing well at all, and as we saw with that 13-0 run, they're not pitching well, and that's the Angels' issue right now. The fact that they're not pitching well, but the fact that they're still out. The fact that they're still in this thing is really good for the Dodgers, and I'm excited to watch these guys get back. The Dodgers still aren't whole. Cody Bellinger, who won the 2019 and NL MVP, hasn't played since April 5th. Two really key bench players with Zach McKinstry and Edwin Rios are on the IL. Dustin May is out of the season. Tony Gonsolin, May's replacement in the fifth spot of the rotation, is still working. He's still working his way back, and you also have three crucial guys that are still coming from injuries with Corey Knebel, Brusdar Gatterall, and David Price. All of those guys still have to be back, and they're sitting right now. Right now, they're sitting still in. They're still sitting at a little bit out of first place, but they're not too far out of first right now. They're not. They're not sitting very far at all out of first place, and because of that, I think that they should be fine. I think that they absolutely will be fine. Like I said, they're right now they're still plus 32. They're 3.5 games back right now out of first place, but they're still in contention, and I like how I'm saying they're still in contention. Of course they're still in contention. It's May. But, teams like Colorado and Detroit, they're just straight up going to be out of the race for pretty much the entire year. But teams like the Dodgers, Giants, the Padres, heck, even Arizona is still in this. If you in the Central, even though Pittsburgh's 6.5 games back, if they somehow flip it around and all of a sudden are just mashing the baseball, then they still have a chance. I'm not even going to talk about the NL East because nobody knows what is going on over there. Because like I said, every time I talk about these division rankings or these division standings, you could flip it upside down, nobody would bat an eye. Nobody would bat an eye if it were Washington in first, Miami in second, instead of Miami in fourth and Washington in fifth. Teams like this are huge teams that are. Teams like the Dodgers. If you're a Dodger fan, I'll leave you with my words right here. There is nothing wrong with being upset with this team right now because they're not performing where they should be. I will absolutely be on that train. They are not performing at a way that they should be. But I will say that this team is hurt right now. They're missing a lot of really key guys. Dustin May was off to a very good start before he tore his UCL. And missing David Price and Corey Knebel out of the bullpen are huge losses. Getting Joe Kelly back is a fantastic way, but he can't give up 4 runs, and that's going to happen sometimes. Pitchers don't have their stuff every day that they go out there. It could be for any number of reasons, but and teams go in slumps. It's just not usually a team goes into an entire team slump where nobody is playing to where they're at. But in baseball, everybody goes through slumps. You see Mike Trout hitting about 300 to start the season and jumping all the way almost to 500 by the end of the month. And then he slowly comes back down, and then he might go back up and down and back up. And that's just baseball. And fortunately for the Dodgers, it's still very early, and hopefully once all of these guys get back and are healthy, that they don't have to send all of these guys to the IL at the same time like they had to right now. So we're going to take a short break, and then the Oakland Athletics have recently announced that they are considering relocation. We'll be right back.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
All right, so the A's. The A's might be moving out of Oakland. They wouldn't be the first team to leave Oakland in the past few years. Hopefully they don't leave Oakland because the fans there absolutely deserve they absolutely deserve a team to be there. And I feel for the fans in San Diego and Oakland that feel like their teams are kind of being ripped away from them, because they kind of are. But I want the Oakland fans to just kind of remain calm, because teams that want a new stadium do this all the time. They do this all the time. They threaten to relocate to find a stadium that would be adequate for them. And if another city is willing to do that, like David Sampson talks about this a lot. They threatened to move the Marlins to San Antonio because San Antonio thought that they was offering to build them a stadium if they were to move there. And this is just a way to get kind of public money. And so I'm going to read a little bit here about why the A's are threatening relocation and why it should kind of be taken serious. So the A's are going to explore options for possible relocation. Major League Baseball said in a statement released by the team today, May 11th, 2021. Major League Baseball suggested the organization consider moving to another city if their proposal for a new ballpark, Howard Terminal Stadium, fails to garner approval from local government. The A's have played in the Coliseum since 1968 and are hoping to move from the aging Oakland Coliseum to a waterfront ballpark. Howard Terminal has spent years in limbo and undergone 3 major redesigns in the past 4 years. The club first unveiled their plans in 2018. Even before Howard Terminal, the team had multiple sites for the new ballpark in Oakland, Fremont, and San Jose, though none have really resulted in anything groundbreaking. Despite the Athletics' 10-year lease to stay in the Coliseum expiring in 2024, the team had originally planned for a 2023 opening of Howard Terminal. Here's the statement by MLB. Major League Baseball is concerned with the rate of progress on the A's new ballpark effort, with local officials and their other stakeholders in Oakland. The A's have worked very hard to advance a new ballpark in downtown Oakland for the last 4 years, investing significant resources while facing multiple roadblocks. We know that they remain deeply committed to succeeding in Oakland, and with 2 other sport franchises recently leaving their community, their commitment to Oakland is now more important than ever. The Oakland Coliseum site is not a viable option for the future vision of baseball. We have instructed the Athletics to begin to explore other markets while they continue to pursue a new waterfront ballpark in Oakland. The Athletics need a new ballpark to remain competitive, so it is now in our best interest to also consider other markets. If their proposal is accepted, the new A's Stadium would allow the A's to move out of their multi-purpose Oakland Coliseum, renamed Ring Central Coliseum in 2020, which was built in 1966. The news of a possible relocation for the A's is a move that could put pressure on local government officials to appoint a new stadium project. A's president Dave Kaval also released a statement. His statement reads as follows: A's fan. Today, Major League Baseball instructed the A's to begin to explore other markets while we continue to pursue the Oakland Waterfront Ballpark project. This is not an easy directive for our fans to hear. We believe in the vision we have presented for a waterfront ballpark. It is a project that will create jobs, housing, open parks, and countless community benefits for Oakland residents. And it will set the stage for more World Series titles for our fans. After 4 years of work, Major League Baseball is concerned with the rate of progress with local officials and other stakeholders on our new ballpark efforts. The time is here for a decision on our future, and it is unclear to us and MLB whether there is a path to success for the A's in Oakland. A new ballpark is needed for the A's continued success. We agree with Major League Baseball's position that the Coliseum location is not a viable option for the future of the franchise. While we remain committed to succeeding in Oakland and will continue to work toward our waterfront ballpark, we will also follow Major League Baseball's direction and immediately begin the process of exploring a new home for the A's. Please know that one of our top priorities is continuing to create the best experience possible for our fans this season and beyond. We have the best fans in baseball. Your passion for this franchise is truly unmatched, and we are deeply grateful for your continued support of our organization. Play ball, Dave Kaval. Dave Kaval is the team president, and so, but as hard as it is to think that the A's might leave Oakland, it's something that could happen. And I think the A's fans deserve to be aware of this situation, and hopefully with them plus applying a little bit of pressure with local government, with fan support, and fear of losing another team to somewhere else is something that I don't think anybody wants to see, but sometimes teams can't get what they want. And the Raiders are a perfect example of this. The government in Oakland would not give them a stadium. They had been trying to get a new stadium in Oakland for a long time. And in fact, they even moved to Los Angeles for a little bit, couldn't get a stadium done there, and came back to the Coliseum for a little bit. They finally were able to get one done, and fortunately for them, but unfortunately for the fans in Oakland, they had to let their team go. And because of that, I mean, it's sad. It's terrible to see. But that's also it's to quote David Sampson in the amazing CBS podcast, Nothing Personal with David Sampson. It's just business. It's nothing personal. And that has to be understood by the fans. And that this is not something that the A's want to do. It's something that they might have to do. But the A's obviously announced that they're going to look at options. The team's proposal includes a privately financed stadium, so it's not even public money. But it does require a $855 million commitment from the city to invest and improve on the infrastructure. That's from ESPN's Jeff Passons. The A's may as well be lifted from a book called Sports Stadium Negotiations 101, and teams who haven't found a way to sweet-talk the politicians into funding their playhouses in due time will eventually try and strong-arm him. Politicians go along for the ride for a lot of reasons, including the fear of losing their next election should a team make good on its warning, and the joy that they feel at being able to point at objects that they help build. So it's going to be interesting. The Athletics are at least one step closer to relocating eventually, and the A's should move. If the A's should move, it would only become the third team in Major League Baseball in the last 50 years to relocate, joining the Rangers, who moved from D.C. in the 70s, and the Nationals, who moved to D.C. after leaving Montreal in 2005. Where the A's might wind up in this scenario, there are a few candidates that they have. Obviously, Los Angeles is a very good spot for them. It's a little bit poetic, too, because obviously the Oakland Raiders are now the Las Vegas Raiders. It's just poetic. It's poetic in an unfortunate sense for Oakland to lose another professional team to the Sin City. The NFL Raiders moved there in 2020, joining the National Hockey League's Golden Knights as the city's first professional sports teams. And Las Vegas has been hosting the minor league affiliate of the A's for a while now. And the legalization of gambling and continued existence in other pro sports teams without a headline-grabbing incident steaming from the city's nightlife has presumably helped Major League Baseball warm up to the idea of doing some business out there. The Athletics would still make geographic sense for the American League West, which is a very, very good point. Las Vegas. Vegas is a very good option for the A's to start looking. Vegas would obviously love to have it. It's one of the biggest markets in the country, and we got to see how Vegas and people from Vegas love the Golden Knights. We got to see a little bit. We didn't really get to see a lot last year of fans watching the Raiders. Hopefully we'll get to see a lot more of that this year. The support for teams to go to Vegas is absolutely there. Portland is a very good option as well. Although moving to Portland would allow the A's, or whatever they would be called at that point, to remain in the West, it would give the Seattle Mariners a natural geographic rival too, because both of those teams are very close, but the Mariners aren't really they aren't really close to anybody right now. And Seattle deserves to have sort of another team that is close to them after having the Thunder get moved to Oakland. And obviously they were the Supersonics then, but they deserve a little bit of I don't want to say help, but they deserve another team to potentially root for. And I think that this is a good option. It would give, obviously, the Mariners a huge natural geographic rival, and both secondary factors that would matter to the Major League Baseball and the Athletics, and that's establish local efforts to build a waterfront stadium. That's what the A's want to do. They want a stadium on the water. Playing in a stadium that is on the water is a huge draw to potential prospects. The fact that they don't play on the water now, but they play in a very, very famous stadium, that helps guys get there, but it's not doing the trick anymore. It's an old stadium. It's got a lot of old stuff inside it, and it's not worth the money to renovate anymore. It's not worth that kind of money to try and throw all of that money in there and try and get good players that way. Now, the A's have never been really in the money-spending business to try and go get big guys, but if they have a new stadium, if they have a brand new stadium potentially a new city, it might incline guys, especially if they're close, to go play at a new place, especially if it's new, and get some and have their new fans fall in love with them. That is a huge like way to get people to to get players to fall in love with them. Another potential opportunity is Montreal. And the Rays already have called dibs on Montreal to an extent by kind of publicizing their desire to play a half and half kind of situation, where half their team schedule is in Canada and the other half is in Florida. It's still a laughable idea, and that one, but I mean, it kind of deserves a silly resolution like this one. And the Athletics beating the Rays to the punch by promising to play all of their games in Montreal would be it would just be comedic genius, honestly, to see that happen, where the A's are just not gonna they're just not gonna go to, and they're just gonna beat out the Rays to getting back to baseball, back to Montreal. Another place that would be very interesting would be Nashville. If Major League Baseball is willing to permit the Athletics to relocate somewhere east, which would basically it would basically force a giant realignment of divisions and leagues in general. You might throw Nashville, Tennessee, or Charlotte, North Carolina into the mix right there. There's a huge group of people pushing for baseball and for Major League Baseball in Nashville, and it includes David Dombrowski, who's a veteran executive, and also Justin Timberlake. David Dombrowski did take up at least it included David Dombrowski until he got a job with the Phillies this past winter, but I think that he would be very open to supporting that, and I wouldn't even be surprised if they potentially relocate, that Dombrowski ends up going to Nashville with the Athletics. And finally, the last option is San Jose. So that's the most logical landing spot because it's an hour south. Oakland is an hour south, San Jose is an hour south of Oakland, and since they've been blocked from moving into the past by San Francisco, in this scenario, we kind of have to pretend that Major League Baseball would be motivated to convince the Giants to waiver their territorial rights. And if that sounds outlandish, well, that's what you get when your team threatens to relocate. San Jose is a good spot for them. It has waterfront property that they could build there. And, I mean, Nashville, you could kind of put it on like one of the rivers, but that's not great for waterfront property. I mean, it's technically waterfront property, but I don't think it's really what the A's are looking for. With places like Montreal, you could have it on one of the Great Lakes, or you could have it on one of the Great Lakes. But the other two, Portland, you get the Pacific Ocean, and with Vegas, you don't get one. That's, I think, probably the biggest downside of that. You could also, I could potentially see, I could potentially see the A's moving north to Sacramento, maybe Fresno in California if they want to stay in Cali. If they go out to the East Coast, you could definitely do North Carolina. You could maybe even do another team in Georgia. There are plenty of options. You could go down to Texas. You could go to San Antonio. You could go on the Riverwalk. You could kick out the Corpus Christi Hooks, and then use and have a stadium there. There are plenty of options for the A's to potentially relocate. But I think what's most likely going to happen is that Oakland politicians are going to give in because they don't want to lose yet another. They don't want to lose yet another team to relocating. I just don't think they can. I think that they'll give in eventually, and I think that they're going to stay in Oakland. And ultimately, I think that's the best option for everybody, and I think that's what everybody wants. These are just my thoughts, but I think that they could potentially be Oakland is obviously the best thing, and I think that's what both teams want. But after a point, you have to kind of move forward with other plans if they're just not there. If the plans are not there, and you can't get the money or you can't get the approval from the government and the support from their government, then the only other option is to get out of there. And as hard as that is to say. But I want to thank you guys for listening. My name has been Patrick Kenny. Please follow us on Twitter at GSMC_baseball. Follow us on Facebook and everything. Please rate, follow, and review on all of our platforms. Please give us a comment, and I read the YouTube comments if you post on. I look at the Apple reviews. Tweet us any suggestions that you might have, and I will try my best. And I know my other co-host or the other hosts of this podcast will absolutely try and do the same. If you guys want more Rockies talk, tweet us so we can give you more Rockies talk. We want to make this as an inclusive environment as possible. So thank you guys all for listening. My name has been Patrick Kenny. You guys have a great rest of y'all's day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.